Good morning, all, and welcome to the service department of this fine dealership, inside which the kindly dealer, the genial service manager, the happy service writers, and the helpful cooperative mechanics are eager to embark on their day's adventure. As all of us realize, the key to a busy and profitable service department, with its better jobs for everyone and steady work without layoffs, is better service selling. Selling attractive accessories for more pleasant driving. Upgrading a free warranty adjustment to a needed tune-up. The opportunities are all around us. We will shortly discuss sales techniques for such items, but something else comes first, foremost, and always. Total selling. Building a strong following of steady customers whom our good workmanship and pleasant treatment keep not only satisfied, but enthusiastic. Now, all of us realize that, as all the books tell us, the customer is always right, and that if friction or dissatisfaction arises, each of us should examine.
Hang on to your clipboards, boys. It looks like here we go again, with another uplifting message from the Genius Department, all about how we bums out in the shops are fouling up the details. Well, let's us tell him something about these customers of his who are always so cotton-picking right. Undoubtedly, they are fine and kindly people in their homes and places of employment. But when they turn their cars into our driveways and line up in our service lanes, so help me, something comes over them. And what comes over them is they turn into types. The first type, as who needs to tell us, is Cheapy the Chiseler, a sort of private Bilko who will happily spend $5 worth of time, our time, trying to con us out of a 50-cent part. Whatever needs fixing, it's because our boys broke it when he was in here for a tune-up 2 weeks ago. 2 years ago on the record. He's always trying to stretch the warranty into a perpetual subsidy for free repairs, including oil changes, filters, and broken windows. He hasn't yet figured out a way to stick us for his gasoline bills, but he's working on it. And next we have Sniffy, the Suspicioner. Writes down the mileage so she can tell if we drive her car in drag races when she leaves it with us overnight. And puts ink marks on her spark plugs so she can tell if a mechanic steals them and puts in old ones. She knows all service departments are crooked. It's just how you're going to gyp her this time. And of course, this is the doll. If we do skip something on the order, but it goes on the bill, this is the one it'll happen to. Of course, the male version of Sniffy is, oh, here he comes now, Creepy the Stroller. Sometimes known as Harvey the Hoodlooker, walking around the stalls and sticking his neck around every mechanic in the shop. We lose more mechanics this way. Well, stroll around if you must, but let's not become emotionally involved. Then there's Short Fuse Fred, the VIP, a very important punk, who waits all of 5 minutes on a busy morning before he bangs in to see the boss. Always, Freddie has 15 car owners under his control, whom he names, all of whom are trading cars next month, so watch it, Bub.
Yes, I am.
And when we can't do his job while he waits, there's some minor thing like replacing a transmission. It seems the salesman told him he could always have a loaner, which had just better be freshly washed and gassed and with new tapes on the stereo player. Any model, so long as it's a new Lincoln or T-Bird. And now we come to Einstein the Expert, the factory-trained mechanic in a customer suit who never tells us the symptoms, but exactly what to do. Where most people will say it's idling sort of rough, he says, file down the points to 007 and leave 2000's clearance on the rotor. And when he picks up his car, if the bill shows the shorted condenser that was really causing the trouble, he sounds off to the service manager. For the record, I should mention here that in some parts of the country there's a variation on the breed known as Einstein the Engineer, usually from one of the aerospace plants or a college, who asks us for the chemical analysis on the radiator hose couplings and what's the radio torque stress on the antenna. So who knows? He does. He's just checking whether to trust us with his car. which, by the way, is always about one wrench twist from falling apart. Customers will kindly remain out of the service area. And whenever we've got a stack up, we can count on Go-Go the Gabber, the marathon talker who can't just tell somebody what time it is. She's got to go about how to make a grandfather's clock, and what she does for breath is a mystery to medicine. This morning it seems that after a variety of analyses by neighbors, the postman, her son, and others, all of whom she quotes in full detail, it seems that under certain involved circumstances, the car, jiggles. Car jiggles, we write down, and Lord knows what the mechanic will have to say about that. Unfortunately, the dealer gets mad if she reports us as saying, "Madam, the problem is your wheelbase is missing."
Jiggles.
But always the maddest is Donald Duck, the instant screamer. The Donalds are mad before they come in. They build up their burn while they wait in the line, and they always open the conversation with excerpts from the hot letter they're going to write to Henry Ford. When Donald stops for breath and we ask him what seems to be wrong with the car, he says, "Don't ask me, that's what you're overpaid for." And out he goes. And you know what? Probably with the keys to his car in his pocket. Customers.
Now, perhaps you men out there are saying to yourselves, once in a great while, an occasional customer may seem at first glance to be a trifle confused, and perhaps even slightly in the wrong. Now, when we find ourselves falling into this error, let us quickly look back over our own actions and see what in our own demeanor or approach might have justifiably annoyed him. That is, in the words of the poet, let us try to see ourselves as others see us. Robert Burns.
So, Robert Burns, what about us? Okay, let's see ourselves as those ither jokers see us, and I'll show him just how ither they can be. Take the customer we just observed, Donald Duck, the instant screamer. As Donald looks across the shop and sees 3 or 4 of our gentlemen gathered around the desk, he may be thinking that instead of us being in consultation with the service manager on a difficult technical diagnosis, we're really just standing there chewing the fat about that redhead with the bilt that Jimmy just handled. It took care of. Is service? Who knows? Maybe the customers even have types for us. Now, Donald, as we remember from his previous visit, is probably calling his man Paul the Promiser. Okay, so maybe Paul was a trifle optimistic when he wrote up such a long order for delivery at 5 o'clock. But when Donald came in for his car, he should certainly have noticed that when he turned on his lights, the horn would still blow and the wipers start. Customers will kindly... thank you. Where was I? Oh, yes, seeing ourselves as ithers and so on. Well, just because Sniffy, the suspicioner, has time to spend hours on her makeup every morning, she has no right to make up names about Sloppy George. When this is still a free enterprise democracy, where no law says you gotta shave every day, and a cigar is a lot better than dying of lung cancer. Besides, he's just chewing it. And who can keep looking like Mr. Clean all day with all this gunk around? So maybe George drops a few ashes on her carpet. It keeps out the moths. And that little grease job George did on her steering wheel, who's charging her for it? Now, our finicky friend Einstein probably regards himself as merely the orderly type and looks on his service writer as Doc the Disorganized. Well, how would he like to try to keep listening to some clown whining on and on about some stupid little rattle when you're trying to manage a slippery clipboard, locate your pencil, blow your nose, scratch your itch, and listen for your name on the intercom while some ape is bumping out a fender? And furthermore, Doc was simply being sympathetic when he said...
Funny, I got the same damn rattle in my car.
And furthermore, it's none of Einstein's business how the mechanic is going to puzzle out Doc's handwriting. People don't always understand Einstein so good either. Oh, good. We've finally gotten rid of Yo. Well, don't just lie there. Run over it. Now, about Itchy, Howard, that is. I do admit that occasionally the crisp and concise manner of speech of some of our service personnel may wrongfully be taken to seem discourteous or abrupt, especially when our diagnosis requires that we resort to a bit of technical terminology.
Yes, madam, I understand about the hairpin, but have you noticed any indication of a failure to your upper camshaft interlock? The sidebar, a sudden increase in your coolant ratio. Well, speak up.
Possibly, as Gogo the Gabber wrote in her last letter to Dearborn, this may make her feel that we think her little troubles, like the car stalling on railroad crossings, are rather petty. But that was no reason for her letter to call our man Itchy the Impatient. Customers will kindly... Oh, nuts. Give the creep a time card.
Now, all of us realize
You suppose those jokers really think those things?
But you know, it is a fact. Somehow, we're not able to spend the time on them that we used to. You guys notice that, too?
It was the same way when I was at Town and Country. Why is it anyway? What's happened to the business?
I'm glad you asked me that. In defense of our service personnel, everybody in the company realizes that you are working under a heavy service load, often very heavy, and the load has two major causes. First, and this is one thing you'll admit the customers are right about, they've been buying an awful lot of new Fords and Mercury. And most of the older jobs, thanks to good initial quality and your good service, keep right on rolling. With the result that we have an automobile population explosion. During a recent 5-year period, the number of Ford Motor Company vehicles in warranty leaped from 1,600,000 to 4,600,000 due to the adoption of the 2-year, 24,000-mile warranty. During that same period, the number of cars per mechanic rose from 31 to 81. Warranty vehicles per service stall went from 18 to 47. Of course, to the older men who remember trying to support a family on 3-day weeks with layoffs, this overload on the floor looks pretty good. We may cry a little, but we're crying on the way to the shopping center. So, first problem, we have more owners on the road. The second cause is the new extended warranty, which means that the new owners come into the shop more often. And they keep coming in to us over a longer period of time. But this, too, even though it shoves us pretty hard at times, again, is a long ways from all bad. Because more visits give us a chance to get better acquainted with the customers, and thus build enduring relationships. Also, more visits keep the owners loyal to us and away from the gas stations and two-bit garages. So we do some non-commissionable work. So we gain the security of that steady paycheck. And as we all know, the owner who comes in for some free service is a good prospect for a commissionable accessory or replacement sale. Anyway, hot or cold, the fact is, we're going to be in this crowded condition for some time to come. And we can either switch jobs to a Studebaker dealership or roll with the overload and figure out some ways we ourselves can relieve it. What ways? Well, that's a problem which you men out there on the firing line can work out better than anyone else. So I suggest that you now switch off this projector, turn up the lights, and work out your answer in open meeting.
Now, there's the way to be a genius. State the problem and walk away while we figure it out. Well, anybody got any bright ideas?
Walt, you used to come by Town and Country once in a while to see Oscar. Remember that sign he had tacked up over the service desk?
Illegitimi non carborundum.
No, the one over his desk.
Yeah? Yeah, I do. Do it right, do it once. In other words, do the job right and complete the first time the guy comes in, and save all the time we spend on those nuisance callbacks.
If you think that's going to stop Donald Duck from screaming, you're a dreamer.
Sure. But he'll only scream once, instead of on 3 or 4 additional callbacks, which saves our ulcers and makes that much more time to spend with 3 or 4 additional customers. Well, anyway, let's do like the guy says and try to figure out the main causes of all these repeats and callbacks. Any ideas?
Okay, you asked for it. Factory defects in the new cars. Not just the knobs and screws on the floor, you don't know where they came from. But there's the doors that don't hang right.
Yeah, and remember when you pulled the headlight switch and both direction signals went on and the clock stopped?
Yeah, I know. It gets rough. I guess the factory guys have their troubles with their health just like we do. But the fact is, if we're going to keep on getting our checks, these new cars have to be delivered. And a proper delivery in the beginning saves all the freeload of those additional callbacks. Now, to be honest, we've been running some new cars through our own shop pretty fast lately. The boss has come up with a step-by-step preparation procedure to make sure that nothing gets missed. Just like an airline pilot's checklist. And also, we want to make sure that one of us gives each car a thorough checkout before the keys are handed over to the salesman.
That's where a lot of the grief starts. How about putting the heat on those hot shots out on the sales floor to tell the people the facts about the warranty when they deliver the car, and not leave the poor guy thinking he's never going to pay a service bill again. And then if you think the owner's going to read his warranty...
I know. They'll only read the happy parts about what they don't pay. Of course, to give those hot shots out front their due, a lot of the new cars get delivered on nights and Saturdays, and when the buyer's in a hurry to get his new rig home and show it off to the neighbors. So actually, the salesman doesn't have much time to do more than show him which end is front. So I guess it's up to us. If we're going to get the grief in the end, we might as well try to block it off in the beginning. So we make sure we tell the customer he's going to have to pay something as we write up the order. Of course, we'll accentuate the positive a little.
This new warranty sure is a good deal, saving you $20, $30 in this job alone. Because all I have to mark up for you to pay are the normal supplies you have to buy anyway. Oil change, filter, and so on.
Actually, the warranty is with us from now on, so we might as well live with it. But it isn't the whole cause of the problems. To be honest, there are a couple or three things we do ourselves that add to the workload. One, of course, is wrong diagnosis. Sometimes the customer misleads us. Sometimes we don't use the diagnostic equipment we've got in the shop. Sometimes we're just in too much of a hurry. And a mistaken instruction on the work order means wasted labor, which we don't get paid for, and the double workload of the callback. You know, in an occasional really puzzling case, we might consider that last desperate step of climbing in behind the wheel and driving the car around the block. If not right then, at least before the mechanic starts the work. And another thing, it doesn't take long on a really tough one to check the customer's file and get the history. And then, even if the diagnosis is right on the button, a couple of extra minutes to write up a legible order with clearly understood prices will ensure complete communication between us and the customer, and through us to the mechanic. Those few minutes will save a lot of minutes later in the week when the job doesn't come back to be done over again. And finally, that prime cause of the 5 o'clock firefight, the items that were listed and didn't get done. Sure, it's a temptation to check off the cream items and pass over the sweat jobs. But if the guy was bugged enough to have us write it up in the first place, he isn't going to forget it. And if we miss it, he's going to spend more time coming back to chew us out and more hours in the stall. Now, the answer to all of this is straight ahead. First, we keep tab on our jobs at intervals during the day to make sure all the items are being done and done right. We make a personal list of parts on order for our jobs to follow up. We road check the car if the work calls for it. And finally, and this is really vital, before giving a completed order to the cashier, we make sure that every job on that order has been done. Because if the door handle the guy paid to have fixed comes off in his hand, how can he know the oil we charged him for was really changed? And generally, we make sure we don't have that guy back in the line later in the week. So there are certain things we can all do to lighten the workload and help keep the customers happy. Proper new car delivery, explain the warranty, correct complete diagnosis, and follow through on the order. But we might as well face it. Whether it's our fault or theirs, there are times when we'll have to give some of the customers unhappy news.
Yeah, like, sorry, sir, but the boss's wife just brought in one of her pals, and we had to pull a mechanic off your job.
Sorry, sir. When we put in the new spark plugs, we found the trouble was a cracked block.
Sorry, sir. The salesman had no right to make an appointment without checking, and we can't take your car till 3 months from next Friday.
And so on. The fact is, no matter how well we do our own jobs, no matter how carefully we check out the work, there are still going to be problems. And there'll be some of the customers,
the oddballs, the wrongos, the Donald Ducks, and the chiselers, that'll still be hard to handle no matter how good the work. In other words, they say, into each life some rain must fall, and sometimes our jobs seem to be in very wet country. But the fact is, they never come in here unless they've got trouble. Something's bugging them. And hot or cold, as the man says, it's their dough, and they've still got it. And to keep the paycheck steady, we want it. So as with anybody else in a business that deals with the public, there are times when we've got to swallow our anger. Play by the customer's rules. That is, we take them as they are. Nice guys and wrongos, friendly ones and the louses, and we rock with them. With the simplest recipe in the world. And the recipe is... well, brace yourselves, boys. Here comes the corn. Except that actually it isn't corn at all. It's simply so true and fundamental, and it's been said so many times that nobody listens anymore. But a guy who works by the recipe will be surprised at how it lightens his load and gets people off his back and makes his life happier. The recipe is friendliness. Friendliness, patience, and honesty.
Friendliness? Fine, but being friendly is something a man feels. How do you show it? Well, one example, when another car rolls in 3 or 4 positions back in the waiting line, we'll give the driver a wave to let him know we know he's waiting. And if it's going to be a long wait, excuse ourselves and drop back there for a second to tell him it's just one of those mornings, but we've got him in mind. We can greet each customer with a nice smile. A smile that we mean, incidentally, regardless of who he is. And go a little out of our way to give him, or especially her, the feeling that he's getting our full attention and our honest interest in his problems, that we really want to help. Along with friendliness comes patience, which sometimes doesn't come too easy with the lines stacking up on us and Go-Go the Gabber dithering about what the salesman told her when she bought the car. But it's still kind of like jiggles, and so on and so on. But believe me, it will pay off tomorrow or the next day by blocking off another call back if we do take the extra few minutes now to let her get the full story off her chest and let us get the order right. And whenever we can sense the possibility of a misunderstanding later on, we can take the time to explain the charges in advance so the customer will be prepared for the bill. And so Sniffy can make sense tonight as she tells her husband what we said was wrong with the car. And all the time, we can keep thinking, keep locked on to what we're doing, keep in control of the situation, and be honest with the people. And out of all this comes something that can give us our real payoff. Because like courtesy, friendliness is contagious. I'm not kidding. Try it. We give a customer a welcoming grin and a warm, good to see you, how can we help you? And watch that grouch begin to swallow the nasty speech he's been practicing while he's been waiting. Yeah, thank you, Doc.
And we find ourselves getting a 3-way personal payoff. First, we lighten our workload. Second, we protect that steady paycheck month by month by keeping the customers happy and coming back. And I guess the most important to me is we get a lot more enjoyment out of life. Come to think of it, it might do pretty well for some of us around home.
Quiet down. Now, start putting your things away. Your father's going to be home any minute. You know how he is when he gets home from that shop.
Hi, doll. You're beautiful tonight. Hi, kids. You look like you've been having a great day. Is everybody happy? That smells good.
Oh, phone Dr. Cassidy. Your father has finally cracked under the strain.
The adjustment may take a little time, but she'll get used to it. And so will you.
Why don't you try it sometime?